Noah Carter looked out the viewport at the swirling purple atmosphere of planet Nexus 4. Even after 3 weeks, he still couldn't believe he was here. The only human student at the Galactic University of Advanced Sciences. His reflection stared. Back at him, ordinary brown hair, plain blue eyes, nothing special by human standards. Yet here he was extraordinary simply by existing. The hallway filled with students moving between classes. Tall, willowy Alturians with their shimmering skin walked alongside bulky Kragner scholars whose forearms carried multiple data tablets. A pair of translucent Medusan twins floated rather than walked, their thoughts occasionally visible as color patterns within their bell-shaped heads. Noah pressed himself against the wall as a Vexarian professor hurried past. Professor Zax Toole hardly noticed Noah. His 8 eyes focused on something in the distance. The professor's gray skin had the texture of smooth stone, and the ridges on his head pulsed with blue light when he was deep in thought. "Humans," muttered a passing Tyrellian, student with mandibles that clicked when she spoke. Why they allowed one here is beyond logical reasoning. Noah pretended not to hear. He was used to it by now. Humans were considered intellectually inferior by most advanced species. Earth had only achieved faster-than-light travel 30 years ago, while some of these species had been crossing galaxies for thousands of years. His datapad buzzed with a notification. Noah nearly dropped it in surprise. On the screen was a message he read 3 times to make sure he understood. Student Noah Carter, you have been selected for Professor Zax Toole's Elite Practical Neural Architecture course. Attendance begins tomorrow at first light. Location, East. Wing Laboratory 12. Acceptance is mandatory for chosen students. Noah blinked in confusion. Professor Zax Toole was a celebrity in the field of comparative neuroscience. His courses were reserved for the brightest minds in the galaxy. There had to be a mistake. The next morning, Noah arrived at Laboratory 12 15 minutes early, his heart pounding. The door slid open silently, revealing a circular room with 12 seats arranged in a perfect circle. 4 students were already there, each from a different species. They looked up when Noah entered, their expressions ranging from curiosity to dismay. "There must be an error," said a quantum student, her crystalline body reflecting the room's light in rainbow patterns. "Humans don't have the neural complexity for this level of study." "Professor Zax Toole makes no errors in student selection," replied a Vexarian student who shared the professor's gray skin, but lacked the elder's wisdom lines. "Though I admit I am equally perplexed." By the time Professor Zax Toole entered the room, all 12 seats were filled. Noah counted representatives from 11 different species plus himself. He was the only human. "Welcome, select minds," said Professor Zax Toole, his voice surprisingly soft for his imposing appearance. "You have been chosen for the most ambitious course in my 400 years of teaching." The professor moved to the center of the circle, his robes flowing around him like liquid shadows. "Each of you represents the pinnacle of your species' cognitive potential. Yes, even our human guest." Zax Toole's eyes briefly focused on Noah, who shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "In this course, we will explore neural architecture not through theory, but through direct experience. Your minds will be the laboratories. Your thoughts will be the experiments." A holographic display appeared above the professor, showing what looked like a 3-dimensional maze of neural pathways. Traditional wisdom suggests that more advanced evolutionary paths lead to superior problem-solving abilities, continued Zax Toole. I believe this assumption deserves challenging. Noah noticed the professor was looking at him again with something like anticipation in his many eyes. For our first practical exercise, prepare for a shared neural simulation 3 days from now. It will test more than your knowledge. It will test the very structure of how you think. As the students filed out after class, Professor Zax Toole called Noah back. "Mr. Carter, I selected you personally for this course." "But why me?" Noah asked. "I'm not even in the top percentile of human intelligence, let alone compared to the others." Professor Zax Toole's mouth curved in what might have been. 3 days passed quickly. Noah spent every spare moment researching neural architecture, desperate, not to embarrass himself in front of the other students. His dreams were filled with brain diagrams and neural pathways. When the day of the simulation arrived, Noah's stomach felt tight with worry. Laboratory 12 looked completely different now. The circular arrangement of seats was gone. Instead, 12 reclined pods formed a star pattern around a central control station. The walls glowed with soft blue light, and strange machines hummed quietly. Professor Zaxtel stood at the control station, his 8 eyes blinking in sequence as students entered. His gray skin seemed to absorb the room's light rather than reflect it. "Welcome to the Neural Simulation Chamber," said Professor Zaxtel. "Today's exercise will be unlike anything you have experienced in your academic careers," the alien students murmured excitedly. A tall Marifan with golden scales raised a slender hand. "Professor, what exactly will we be simulating?" she asked, her voice musical. "An excellent question, Lonnie," replied Zaxtel. "You will be entering a shared virtual environment designed to test your problem-solving capabilities under pressure. The nature of the environment will be revealed once you are inside." Noah noticed that the other pods had direct neural interfaces, devices that connected directly to the user's brains, but the pod marked for him had a modified headset instead. "Each interface has been specially calibrated for your species' neural patterns," explained the professor. "Mr. Carter, humans have not yet evolved compatible neural pathways for direct interface, so you will use this adapted version." The professor handed Noah the headset with what seemed like a small smile. Noah couldn't tell if it was kindness or something else behind that expression. "Will this put me at a disadvantage?" Noah asked quietly. "Perhaps, or perhaps not," said Zaxtel cryptically. "Different is not always inferior, Mr. Carter." The students settled into their pods. Noah lay back as the clear cover closed over him. The headset felt cold against his temples. He watched as the alien students connected to their interfaces with practiced ease. The Quantum student's crystalline body glowed brightly as she linked to the system. The 2 Alturians' skin rippled with patterns as they connected. "Prepare for immersion," announced Professor Zaxtel's voice through speakers in each pod. "Relax your minds and allow the connection to form naturally. Resistance will only cause discomfort." Noah closed his eyes and tried to relax. The headset warmed against his skin. At first, nothing happened. Then slowly, his body began to feel distant, as if he were floating away from it. Colors swirled behind his closed eyelids, blues and purples and colors he had no names for. A strange sensation swept over him, like falling but in all directions at once. Noah wanted to panic but found he couldn't remember how. His thoughts stretched and compressed like taffy being pulled. Then suddenly, it stopped. Noah opened his eyes to find himself standing in a stone corridor. The walls were made of massive blocks of dark gray stone. The air felt cool and slightly damp. Torches and metal brackets provided dim orange light. One by one, the other students appeared beside him. Their forms looked solid and real, though some had slight transparency around the edges. The Medusan twins' bell-shaped heads glowed faintly in the dim light. "Is everyone present?" asked a voice from behind them. The students turned to see Professor Zaxtel. His virtual form looked identical to his physical one, except his 8 eyes now glowed with an eerie blue light. "Welcome to today's laboratory," said the professor. "As you can see, we are no longer in the university." Noah looked around uneasily. The stone corridor extended in both directions with heavy metal doors placed at regular intervals. "It looked like a prison," said the Vexarian student. "You've placed us in a simulated prison facility." "Very observant, Kren," said Professor Zaxtel. "But this is no ordinary prison. This virtual environment has been constructed using the most sophisticated security algorithms in the galaxy." The professor's eyes swept across the group, lingering on Noah for a moment longer than the others. "Today's exercise is simple. Escape." Noah felt a cold feeling creep up his spine as he saw the professor's expression change to something harder, more scientific. "But before you begin, I should inform you that this is not merely an exercise. It is an experiment, a genuine research study, and you are now my subjects." A smile. Sometimes, Mr. Carter, what seems like a limitation might actually be an advantage. I look forward to seeing how you perform in the simulation. Noah left the laboratory feeling both honored and uneasy. What exactly did the professor expect from him? And why did it feel like he was being set up for something bigger than a simple class exercise? Shocked silence filled the stone corridor. The 12 students stared at Professor Zaxtol, trying to process his words. Noah felt his heart beating faster. Something was very wrong. "What do you mean we're subjects?" asked Lonnie, the golden-scaled Marifan. Her voice echoed off the stone walls. Professor Zaxtol clasped his four hands together. His virtual form seemed more solid than the students', more defined. "For years I have studied how different species solve problems," he explained, his voice calm and academic. "My hypothesis is simple but revolutionary. Neural complexity does not always equal problem-solving superiority." The professor walked to one of the stone walls and placed a hand against it. The wall rippled slightly at his touch. "This virtual prison is constructed from the most advanced security protocols known to the Galactic Council. It has 13 distinct layers, each with unique escape challenges. According to all my calculations, it should take an intelligent species 3 to 4 weeks to solve." 3 to 4 weeks? Exclaimed the quantum student, her crystalline form flashing with alarm. "Professor, we cannot remain in a simulation for that long. Our physical bodies are perfectly safe," interrupted Zaxtol. "The simulation pods will sustain your biological functions. Time also moves differently here. What feels like weeks in this environment will be mere days in the physical world." Noah stepped forward. "You can't keep us here against our will. This is illegal." Several of the alien students nodded in agreement, murmuring among themselves. Professor Zaxtol's eyes fixed on Noah. "Actually, Mr. Carter, it is perfectly legal. When you enrolled in this course, the agreement you signed included consent for immersive research studies. Paragraph 17, subsection 4, if you care to remember." Noah hadn't read the fine print. None of them had. "What exactly are you testing, Professor?" asked Kren, the young Vexarian. "I am testing a theory that has been dismissed by the scientific community for too long," replied Zaxtol, his voice rising with passion. "That the seemingly primitive neural structures of less advanced species might contain unique attributes that more evolved brains have lost." His gaze settled on Noah again. "Specifically, I believe humans possess cognitive tools that other, more advanced species do not. This environment will prove or disprove that theory." The Alturian twins exchanged looks. One of them spoke, her voice like wind chimes. "You designed this prison to be unsolvable by traditional advanced methods, didn't you?" Professor Zaxtol's mouth curved into that strange smile again. "Very perceptive. Yes, the security systems are specifically designed to counter the known problem-solving approaches of all your species." "That's not fair," protested a bulky Kragner student, his forearms crossed over his chest. "Science is not about fairness, Drock," replied the professor coolly. "It is about discovery, and I intend to discover something remarkable." Professor Zaxtol moved to the center of the group. "The rules are simple. Find your way out of the prison. The first to escape will receive academic honors beyond anything offered before at this university. Those who cannot escape will provide valuable data on the limitations of their species' cognitive approach." "And if we refuse to participate?" asked Noah. "You are already participating, Mr. Carter," said Zaxtol. "The only way out is through." With that, the professor's form began to fade. "I will be monitoring all of you from the control station. Good luck, students. Or should I say, subjects." Professor Zaxtol disappeared completely, leaving the 12 students alone in the stone corridor. Panic erupted immediately. The Kragner student, Drock, began pounding on the walls with his 4 massive fists. The Medusan twins floated up to the ceiling, searching for hidden exits. The Quantum student seemed frozen in place, her crystalline form dim with shock. "We need to work together," said Lonnie, trying to create order. "The professor has clearly been planning this for a long time." Kren, the young Vexarian, turned to Noah. "He seemed The students stared at Professor Zach's tool in silence. No one moved. Noah felt a cold feeling in his stomach. This was not a normal class exercise anymore. "Did you say subjects?" asked the Marifin student named Lonnie. Her golden scales seemed dimmer in the prison's dark light. "Indeed," said Professor Zaxatul. He walked slowly around the group, his 8 eyes watching them closely. "You are now part of the most important study in comparative neuroscience ever conducted." The professor stopped in front of a heavy iron door set into the stone wall. He touched it lightly and the door glowed blue for a moment. "For too long, the scientific community has believed that more complex brains are always better at solving problems," he continued. "I think this is wrong. I believe that some less developed species may have mental abilities that more advanced ones do not." The professor looked directly at Noah when he said this. Noah shifted uncomfortably. "Is that why you included a human in this group?" asked Kren, the young Vexarian student. "Precisely," said Zaxtool. "Humans are considered primitive by galactic standards. Their brains lack the neural complexity of Vexarians or the quantum processing of Quantans. And yet," he paused, his eyes glowing brighter, "and yet they have achieved space travel despite their limitations. How? That is what I intend to discover." "How long will we be trapped here?" asked one of the Medusan twins, her bell-shaped head pulsing with nervous light. "That depends entirely on you," answered the professor. "This prison has 13 levels of security. Based on my calculations, it should take between 3 and 4 weeks for even the most brilliant minds to escape." The students gasped and began talking all at once. A large Kragner student named Drock stepped forward, all 4 of his hands clenched into fists. "You can't keep us here that long. It's against university rules." Professor Zaxatul smiled. "Actually, it is not. The agreement you all signed when joining this course included permission for extended simulation experiences. Section 12, Paragraph 3. None of you read it, I assume?" Noah hadn't. From the looks on the others' faces, they hadn't either. "Our physical bodies," began the crystalline quantum student. "Will be perfectly fine," said the professor. "The pods will maintain your biological needs, and time moves differently in this simulation. 4 weeks here is only about 3 days in the physical world." Noah looked around at the stone walls and iron doors. "What exactly do you want us to do?" "Escape," said Zaxatul simply. "Find your way out of the prison. The first student to escape will receive special honors and recognition. Those who cannot escape will provide valuable data on their species' mental limitations." "And what if we refuse to try?" asked Lonnie, her musical voice now hard with anger. "Then you will remain here until the simulation ends," said the professor. "But I think your natural curiosity will prevent that. Scientists always want answers, don't they?" Zaxtoul stepped back from the group. His form began to fade slowly, becoming transparent. "I designed this prison specifically to counter the known problem-solving methods of all your species," he said. "It cannot be solved with standard approaches. You will need to think differently." His eyes fixed on Noah one last time before he disappeared completely. "Good luck, subjects. I will be watching your progress with great interest." When the professor was gone, the students looked at each other in shock. Then everyone began talking at once. Some were angry, others scared. The Kragnor student Drock began hitting the walls with his massive fists. "Stop that," said Kren. "We need to be logical about this." "Logical?" said one of the Medusan twins. "This is kidnapping." While the others argued, Noah walked slowly around the stone corridor, looking closely at the walls, floor, and ceiling. Something about this place seemed familiar to him. Not the prison itself, but the way the virtual reality was built. It reminded him of the VR games he used to play back on Earth, and all games had rules. And where there were rules, there were usually exceptions to those rules. "Hey," said a voice beside him. It was Lonnie, the Marifin student. "What are you looking for?" Noah ran his hand along the rough stone wall. "I'm not sure yet, but the professor thinks humans have some special way of thinking. I'm trying to figure out what that might be." Lonnie's golden eyes studied him. Do you think you can solve this puzzle faster than the rest of us? Noah shook his head. No way. But maybe I can solve it differently. Ed, particularly interested in you, human. What makes your brain so special? Noah shook his head. I have no idea. I'm the least qualified person here. But as the alien students began discussing complex theories and mathematical approaches to the prison's security, Noah found himself looking at their surroundings differently. Something about this virtual world felt familiar to him, like the virtual reality games he had played back on Earth, and games always had glitches. Noah stood at the corner where two hallways met. The alien students were scattered throughout the prison, each trying their own approach to escape. The Quantan student was attempting to calculate the mathematical patterns of the security system. The Medusan twins were using their shared mind to scan for weaknesses in the virtual code. Kren, the young Vexarian, was trying to reason with the security systems using logic puzzles. None of them were making progress. But Noah had noticed something strange. In this corner, where the medieval stone corridor met a more modern-looking hallway, there was a small visual glitch. If he looked at it from a certain angle, the textures didn't quite match up. There was a tiny shimmer in the air, like heat, rising from hot pavement. "What are you doing, human?" asked Drock, the Kragner student. His forearms were scratched from pounding on walls. "Have you given up already?" "No," said Noah quietly. "I'm looking for glitches." "Glitches?" Drock laughed, a deep rumbling sound. "This is advanced Vexarian technology, not some primitive human game. That's just it," said Noah. "It is a game, or at least it works like one." Noah had spent hundreds of hours playing virtual reality games on Earth. While these games were much simpler than this advanced alien simulation, they all shared one thing in common. They weren't perfect. They had bugs, glitches, places where the rules broke down. He knelt down and examined the corner more closely. The shimmer became more noticeable. Noah reached out and touched it. His fingers passed through what appeared to be solid wall. His heart began to race. He had found something. "Drock, come look at this," he said. The large Kragner lumbered over. "What is it?" "Watch," said Noah. He pushed his entire arm through the seemingly solid wall. From the outside, it looked like his arm had disappeared. Drock's four eyes widened. "How are you doing that?" "It's a rendering error," explained Noah. "Where these two different prison sections meet, the system can't quite match them perfectly. There's a gap in the virtual environment." Noah pulled his arm back. "But the gap is small. I'm not sure if it's big enough for me to fit through. Alone you," Drock called to the others. Soon all the alien students gathered around the corner examining Noah's discovery. "This is a primitive approach," said the Quantan student. Her crystalline form shimmered with disapproval. "We should be solving this through proper mathematical analysis, not exploiting system errors." "But it works," said Lonnie, the Marifin. "Can you get through, Noah?" Noah looked at the small glitch. He wasn't sure. In the VR games he played, sometimes you could push through these kinds of errors, but sometimes the game would just reset you. "I'm going to try," he said. "But I need to approach it differently." Noah closed his eyes and remembered something he had learned about virtual reality. The human brain filled in gaps in perception all the time. In VR, if you believed something was possible, sometimes that belief affected how the system responded to you. "What are you doing now?" asked Kren. "I'm convincing my brain that the wall isn't solid," said Noah. "In virtual reality, perception can affect reality." The alien students looked confused. This concept didn't make sense to their more logical minds. Noah took a deep breath and walked toward the corner. Instead of trying to squeeze through a small gap, he simply walked forward as if the wall wasn't there. He visualized himself passing through to the other side. To everyone's surprise, including his own, Noah passed right through the wall. He found himself in a bright white corridor that looked nothing like the prison. Control panels lined the walls. This wasn't part of the prison simulation. It was some kind of system space between program elements. "I'm through," he called back, his voice sounding distant to those still in the prison. Inside the system space, Noah could see the structure. of the prison program. It was like looking at the prison from the outside, seeing all its parts laid bare. Professor Zaxtol's voice suddenly boomed around him. 17 minutes, said the professor, sounding both shocked and delighted. You escaped in 17 minutes. Mr. Noah opened his eyes to the bright lights of the neural simulation chamber. The pod cover slid back with a soft hiss. He sat up slowly, feeling dizzy as his mind readjusted to the real world. Professor Zaxtol stood over him, all 8 eyes fixed on Noah with intense interest. 17 minutes, the professor said, his voice a mix of excitement and disbelief. You escaped my inescapable prison in 17 minutes. Noah's mouth felt dry. He looked around the lab and saw the other 11 pods were still closed. Their status lights glowed bright green, showing the alien students remained in the simulation. Let them out, said Noah, his voice hoarse. The experiment is over. Professor Zaxtol shook his head, the ridges on his head pulsing with blue light. No, Mr. Carter. The experiment has only just begun. Your unexpected success has opened up fascinating new research questions. Noah stood up, steadying himself against the pod. You can't keep them trapped in there. It's wrong. Wrong? The professor tilted his head. Is it wrong to advance science? To discover new truths about the nature of consciousness? Noah pointed to the pods. Those are people, not lab rats. They have rights. Professor Zaxtol walked to his control station, his long gray fingers moving quickly over the displays. Data streams showed the neural activity of each student still in the simulation. Look at this, he said, his voice filled with wonder. Their neural patterns are changing. They're starting to think differently, more human-like. Your success is influencing them. Noah moved closer to see the screens. Each display showed a student's location in the virtual prison. Some were examining walls more carefully now. Others were testing the rules of the simulation in ways they hadn't before. They're learning from what I did? Precisely, said the professor. This is more valuable than I ever hoped. We must let the experiment continue to see if they can adapt their thinking patterns to match your approach. Noah shook his head firmly. No. You said the first to escape would win. I escaped. It's done. Professor Zaxtol's eyes narrowed. Mr. Carter, perhaps you don't understand the importance of this work. This research could revolutionize how we understand consciousness throughout the galaxy. Noah looked around the lab for some way to free the others. I'll report this to the university authorities. They won't allow you to hold students against their will. The professor made a sound like dry leaves being crushed. It took Noah a moment to realize it was laughter. This laboratory is isolated from outside communication during experiments, said Zaxtol. Standard safety protocol. No one can hear. You cannot leave until I end the session. Noah felt trapped again, but this time in the real world. He looked at the main control panel, trying to understand its alien design. There had to be some way to shut down the simulation. Professor, I respect your research, Noah said carefully. But I can help you more if the others are free. I can explain how I think, how humans approach problems. Isn't that better than watching them struggle? Zaxtol considered this. His head ridges pulsed slowly as he thought. You are clever, Mr. Carter. But I am a scientist. I need to observe the natural process of cognitive adaptation. Noah moved closer to the control panel. Then let me help you understand what happened. I can show you exactly how I found the glitch in your system. The professor's eyes lit up with scientific curiosity. Yes, explain your method. How did you know to look for rendering errors? As Noah began explaining, he carefully studied the control system. He noticed a pattern in the symbols on the panel. His time analyzing the virtual prison's structure had given him insight into Vexarian programming logic. If he could just find the right command sequence. Human perception is different, Noah continued, moving slightly closer to the controls. We don't see perfect patterns. We look for breaks, for things that don't match. The professor was completely focused on Noah's explanation, his scientific mind hungry for understanding. He didn't notice Noah's hand slowly reaching toward a specific section of the control panel. So when I saw the corner where two different architectural styles met, said Noah, I knew that would be the weakest point in the simulation. His fingers hovered over what he hoped was the emergency override. Carter. Noah looked up to see a large view screen. On it was Professor Zaxtool's face, his 8 eyes wide with amazement. How did you know to look for rendering errors? Asked the professor. I play games, said Noah simply. All virtual environments have glitches if you know where to look. Remarkable, whispered Zaxtool. Your primitive brain accomplished what should have been impossible. Noah's fingers pressed the override button. Nothing happened. Professor Zaxtool made that dry laughing sound again. Did you think I would leave the emergency controls unprotected, Mr. Carter? I have been conducting experiments for 400 years. I plan for every possibility. Noah stepped back, his mind racing. He needed a new plan. The controls require Vexarian DNA to activate, explained the professor. Only I can end the simulation. Noah looked at the other students, still trapped in their pods. Through the clear covers, he could see their faces. Some looked frustrated, others determined. None of them knew Noah had already escaped. What if I go back in? Noah suggested suddenly. I could help the others from inside. Professor Zaxtool's eyes widened with interest. Return to the simulation? Why would you do that after escaping? To teach them, said Noah. You want to understand how humans think differently, right? Let me show them. It would make your research even better. The professor considered this, his head ridges pulsing with blue light. Noah held his breath. An intriguing proposal, Zaxtool finally said. But how do I know you won't simply reveal the exit to everyone immediately? You could change the simulation, Noah suggested. Move the glitch I found, create a new challenge. The professor's eyes lit up. Yes, a perfect solution. I can modify the prison architecture and observe how you adapt to new conditions. While the professor began adjusting the simulation, Noah watched carefully. He noticed how Zaxtool accessed the system, which commands he used. Noah had worked with computers most of his life. While alien technology was different, the basic principles seemed similar. Professor Zaxtool finished his modifications. Your pod is ready, Mr. Carter. I have altered the prison structure. Your previous solution will no longer work. Noah lay back in his pod. The cover closed over him once more. As the headset touched his temples, he whispered to himself, I'm coming, guys. The falling sensation returned. Colors swirled around him. Then Noah was standing in the stone corridor again. The alien students turned to him in surprise. Noah? Lonnie stepped forward. We thought you disappeared. Where did you go? Before Noah could answer, Professor Zaxtool's voice boomed around them. Students, Mr. Carter has returned to assist you. He successfully escaped the simulation 17 minutes after it began. Shocked murmurs ran through the group. How is that possible? Asked the quantum student, her crystalline form flashing with disbelief. I found a way out, said Noah simply, and now I'm back to help all of you. The professor's voice continued. I have modified the simulation. The previous exit no longer exists. Consider this phase 2 of our experiment. When the voice faded, the alien students gathered around Noah. You must tell us how you escaped, demanded Kren, the young Vexarian. Noah looked around at the prison. It was different now. The layout had changed, but something important hadn't changed. It was still a virtual environment with rules and limitations. The professor thinks in terms of puzzles and solutions, Noah explained. But virtual environments aren't perfect. They have flaws, gaps in their programming. The alien students looked confused. This approach went against everything they had been taught. Instead of trying to solve the prison logically, Noah continued. We need to look for glitches in the system itself. Glitches? Asked one of the Medusan twins. You mean errors in the programming? Exactly, said Noah. I found a spot where 2 different parts of the prison didn't match up perfectly. I was able to walk through what looked like a solid wall. Drock, the Kragner student, shook his massive head. That's cheating, not solving. In a real prison, maybe, said Noah. But this isn't real. It's code. And code always has bugs. Noah lowered his voice. But I didn't come back just to help you escape. There's something more important. The professor won't let us out willingly. We need to hack the system from the inside. 3 days later, the university's main meeting hall was filled with professors, administrators, and curious students. At the center of the room stood Professor Zaxatul, facing the stern faces of the university board. Beside him stood Noah and the 11 alien students who had been part of the experiment. Professor Zaxatul, said the head of the board, an elderly, Alturian with silver skin, you are accused of endangering students and conducting unapproved research protocols. How do you respond? The professor's head ridges pulsed with calm blue light. I admit I pushed ethical boundaries, but the results justify my methods. Angry whispers filled the room. The head of the board raised a hand for silence. Results never. Justify unethical methods, Professor. The students were trapped for nearly 30 hours. And in that time we made a breakthrough in understanding consciousness, replied Zaxatul. He turned to Noah. Mr. Carter, please explain what happened. Noah stepped forward. He looked different now. More confident. The past few days had changed him. After I escaped the first time, I went back into the simulation to help the others, Noah explained. Together, we created something new. What do you mean? Asked a board member. The alien students couldn't escape using their normal ways of thinking, said Noah. Their advanced brains were actually limiting them. They were too logical, too focused on perfect solutions. Lonnie, the Marifin student, stepped forward. Noah showed us how to think differently. Humans don't just look for answers, they look for exceptions, for places where rules break down. We combined our approaches, added Kren, the young Vexarian. The human's ability to find flaws in the system with our advanced knowledge of programming. Professor Zaxatul displayed a hologram showing brainwave patterns. Look at these neural readings. When the students began adopting human-like thinking patterns, their problem-solving abilities increased by 43%. The board members leaned forward, their anger giving way to scientific curiosity. Together we didn't just escape, said Noah. We rewrote parts of the simulation from the inside. We created a shared mental space where different types of thinking could combine. The Quantum students' crystalline form glowed brightly. In my 1,000 years of existence, I never considered that a less evolved species might possess cognitive advantages. I was wrong. Professor Zaxatul pointed to more data displays. This research changes everything we thought we knew about the evolution of consciousness. The most advanced brains are not always the most effective. The head of the board looked thoughtful. This is remarkable data, but the methods were still unacceptable. I agree, said Noah, surprising everyone. The professor was wrong to trap us, but what we discovered is too important to ignore. After hours of debate, the board reached a decision. Professor Zaxatul would be placed on probation, but allowed to continue his research under strict ethical oversight. More importantly, the university would establish a new department dedicated to cognitive diversity studies. As they left the hearing, Noah found himself surrounded by his alien classmates. What will you do now? Asked Lonnie. The university has asked me to stay on as a teaching assistant, said Noah. They want me to help design courses on human cognitive approaches. Drock, the large Kragner student, placed one of his 4 hands on Noah's shoulder. I called you primitive when we first met. I was wrong. Your mind is different, not lesser. News of the experiment spread quickly through the galaxy. Other universities began requesting human students for their programs. The Galactic Council even revised its species intelligence rankings, noting that raw neural processing power was just one measure of cognitive potential. Noah often thought about those 17 minutes in the virtual prison. How his human brain, with all its limitations, had seen a solution that more advanced minds could not. As he walked to his new office in the Cognitive Diversity Department, Noah smiled at the sign on the door. Noah Carter, Human Cognitive Specialist. Beneath. It was a quote from Professor Zaxatul's now famous research paper, In the evolution of the mind, what seems like a limitation may actually be an advantage. How? Asked Lonnie. Noah smiled. When I escaped, I saw how the simulation is structured. If we work together, I think we can create a backdoor that will force the system to release everyone. For the first time, the alien students looked at Noah with respect. The human's strange way of thinking suddenly seemed valuable. Tell us what to do, said Kren.